Oh, see, look, I'm not even paying attention to the gavel.
Welcome to the Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019 Downtown Development Authority meeting. Roll call.
Roll call. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today at the April 3rd board meeting of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. Bob Gunzel, Tyler Kinley,
Here.
Marie Clough,
Here.
Howard Lazarus,
Here.
Jessica Letaw, Joan Lowenstein, here, Molly McFarland,
Here.
Darren McKinnon,
Present. Yeah.
John Moet,
Here.
Rishi Narayan,
Present.
Keith Orr,
Here.
and Phil Weiss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
So I might want to mention, thanks Maura, no, that's okay, that Susan is not with us today. She is a bit under the weather, so this will be my first experience of not having Susan, all of us really, of not having Susan at the meeting, so we'll do our best.
I really feel this was a missed opportunity to have Joe do roll call. I don't know, and come up to the mic.
This is true. Well, we'll get you up here, Joe.
I'm sure Susan's watching from home. Should we all wave to her?
It's not live, it's taped.
Oh, it's not live?
Oh,
On
it's
YouTube or anything?
Okay, well, next on the agenda is the approval of the board meeting agenda. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second?
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
There you go.
Say nay. All right, motion, the board agenda is approved, so we'll move on to audience participation. Alan, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I hope Susan is well. I saw her last night at the Downtown Citizens Advisory Committee. She seemed okay then. I guess I'm struck. So I'm here again about the center of the city, which you all know the City Council at its last meeting approved a task force to oversee the development of all the ideas that might make the Central Park and Civic Center a vibrant downtown destination, as I've heard it called. In particular, we are doing, this will be the 6th annual Earth Day gathering on the library lot, Community Commons, and I gave you each an invitation, and I would hope that the DDA would join in being actually a sponsor and encourager of this event, inviting the town to come, and particularly yourselves, to add into the program your perspective from DDA on how the downtown and how we see the earthiness of our center of the city developing. And hoping that this become an inclusive program with many ideas and visions. And so this is just to convey the invitation and the aspiration that on your agenda you could, if that could be possible, say the DDA would join in being a supporter and encourager of this. At the Citizens Advisory Committee, we came in too late to be on the agenda, as it were, but Ray said he was certainly going to come, as he did last year, and dance with my wife, and you're all invited to come and dance and have a good time. And that's really what the hope is for the center of the city, that after all the hoop-to-do, we could see a coming together and a joining of visions and encouragement and positivity. So that's my communication in less than 4 minutes. Is there any chance such could be on your agenda to actually consider joining as a co-sponsor or encourager, anything on our leaflet as we put this out into the world? That's my query.
So that's something that wouldn't be addressed here today. That certainly can be a discussion item. Thank you. Any other audience participation? Seeing no one signed up, we'll move on to the reports from the city boards and commissions. Mr. Detter.
Last night, the Downtown Area CDC had the benefit of an hour-long presentation, questions and answer discussion with Susan Polley on people-friendly streets. She was in great shape last night, did an excellent job. Also, friendly streets, Huron and William Street projects, updates. We covered pedestrian and transit safety, left turns, right turns, improvements on both William and Huron, refinements and experimentation in the William Street bikeway design, that is in the area of planters and or bollards or whatever it is that we want to put in that particular area, and possible work schedules. In the last few years, the Citizen Advisory Council was pleased to be a part of the discussions with regard to the walkways of both South University and also 5th and Detroit Street in the Carytown area. There were multiple meetings at that particular point. Now getting close to completion in the case of Carytown this spring and summer, we hope. This Friday, some of us will be meeting Maura down at the marketplace for the re-measurement of the glass frame lumber and agriculture. One of our major glass frames had to be taken out and stored in order that we could move ahead with that particular project. We want to place it in an even better location than it was before. Last night, our discussion of East Huron also included the block between North Division and State, because the people who were there were concerned about that particular direction. Even though that block and on the crosswalk at Thayer and beyond was covered last night, we need to also deal with it in a very specific way ahead of time, because those are real problem areas. At this particular point, we have backed up traffic along Huron Street in front of all that development on the north side of Huron Street. We also have a situation in which that crosswalk at Thayer Street, even though it's outside the DDA, is something that has to be taken into consideration because it's just too dangerous to leave there. Parked and standing vehicles are a major problem also on the other side. And of course, we have the project, our 20-story building over on Washington Street, a block away. What does that do to the whole nature of any plans that we make on Huron Street? We need to be talking now about these possible future impacts, not when we get done with Huron west of Division. Let's consider neighborhood traffic and pedestrian patterns, particularly with possible construction of a 20-story building on East Washington. And also, as you know, there's a hotel going to go up on the corner of Ann and Glen. That's going to impact Division Street as well, and the nature of the traffic patterns through the old Fourth Ward neighborhood. And that was brought up last night as a consideration that we hope will be made. The remaining half an hour after the hour-long presentation by Susan and discussion was given over to a rather very scattered, I thought, discussion of future affordable housing possibilities. And it is amazing the number of different sorts of views with regard to affordable housing. It was said last night we don't even have a list of the number of affordable, which is totally untrue. And Susan, of course, corrected that by sending out an information sheet last night, probably when she was already getting sick, informing us of that. And after that, of course, a half an hour of some confused talk with regard to various directions in affordable housing. Some of us went upstairs because before the Planning Commission, the discussion took place in relationship to DTE and that site on Broadway. Because like it or not, I mean, that is going to be in the future something which is going to have an impact upon downtown. And it has to be thought about in relationship to downtown as we're approving it. The Planning Commission is really going over it thoroughly with regard to the nature of some of the impacts it may have on traffic and also human being directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Next up, DDA member communications. Jessica is not here today, so on behalf of Jessica, as most of you know, or you should know, that Jessica hosts monthly downtown hall meetings. And so this is where we can learn more about the projects that are upcoming at the DDA. So she wanted me to let everybody know that the next meeting will take place tonight, April 3rd, from 7 to 8:30 at the Pittsfield Ann Arbor AADA branch. And then Saturday, April 6th at 10 a.m., they will meet on the west side of the Blake Transit Center on 4th Avenue for her traditional walk and talk. Howard?
So just a couple things, some of which follow up on what Mr. Detter said. The crosswalk on Huron between Ingalls and Thayer is in DDA's program for next year to put a hawk signal in. We have asked if we can do that work on their behalf to move it forward, so we're working on a interagency agreement with that. They've also, as part of the Huron Street project, MDOT has programmed the left turn lane from westbound Huron onto southbound 5th, so they will put the signal into the sequence there next year as well. The outstanding issues with them are still the conversion of the hog signal at Third and Huron to a full traffic signal. That's still in their traffic engineering group. And they have taken a very firm no stance on off-peak parking in that project. So that is something for another day and another time. With spring, you will see the reemergence of birds, scooters, not the flying kind. So they have actually made their back payments and you'll see those scooters come out. We've also reached an agreement with Spin, which I believe is an affiliate of the Ford Motor Company. So we'll have upwards of 200 scooters available downtown. Council also approved the agreement to fund bike share for another year at its meeting on Monday. Hopefully with a professional operator, we'll see much better results there as well. Mr. Detter talked about the Mishcon site, which was at the Planning Commission yesterday and was approved. I think part of that discussion on traffic is also part of an overall mobility plan for the Lower Town area, which Council's asked to be funded in the FY20 budget as well. So those are some things that follow up on what Mr. Detter said.
Thank you, Howard. Anybody else? All right, seeing no one, we will move on to Executive Director Communications, which I understand there are also none today. So we will move on to a motion for the approval of the minutes for the March meeting minutes, and those are not in your packet because those are online. We are reducing paper, so if you need to see those, that's where they are. So can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
So all those in favor of approving the March meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. All right, the motion moves. Next, we move to subcommittee reports, and first up is, and it's a beefy one today, capital improvements with John.
Thanks very much. Bear with me, when the meeting started, I got a nosebleed, so that's why I disappeared for a few minutes. So just in case I suddenly run out of here, that's why.
I'll jump in.
You'll jump in?
Yeah.
Okay, you got me
That's
covered.
because it's a beefy report that you're about to give.
Yes.
That's right. It might make my head explode. Okay. Actually, the main thing today, we've got 4 resolutions, but just to give you a quick update on the projects themselves. Here on Street, good news is they anticipate starting work next week. So we'll start to see, more in place about the plans, and obviously we have our trusty consultants here in Amber too. If anyone wants to ask about that process as we start going forward, it probably would be helpful for someone to give us a little bit of an update on what the impacts will be on the public and closings and all those sorts of things. So maybe in a few minutes we can ask for a quick update on that from one of you, what we can expect for the first piece of the project. The other news on here on Street is that we did get official word back from MDOT that they are not going to allow us to approve the non-rush hour parking, which I don't think was any great surprise to any of us. The good news is that the project doesn't get changed substantially, and there will be the opportunity in the next few years. I would like to hope that the DDA will take another bite at the apple, with the support of the city, give it another shot. The project can be designed in such a way that could be relatively easily instituted whenever we can get an approval through for that. William Street, that project will start soon after commencement, and at this point staff's starting to work on some outreach materials, which again we can maybe ask for a quick update on sort of the nature of those materials and how that's being coordinated with the city. So speaking of William Street, you may remember that it's a joint project with the city, and so bids were received. Again, good news, bad news. Good news is that our portion of the work came in within our projected budget. Bad news, the city's portion came in over, so they're working on looking at trimming that part of the scope of work, but they seem to have a good handle on how to do that. Another bit of good news, bad news. Bad news, we only got one bid again. Good news, it was from Fonson, same contractor that's done our other projects that has done a good job. So you may have seen that Amber, I think, did a just tremendous job on a couple of the memos that were in our packages that sort of describe the whole bid process and, you know, sort of circumstances of contractors' participation and so forth. And I won't sort of get into all that detail unless somebody has specific questions, but I think at least I am comfortable that you know, the bid's kind of within the guidelines of what we wanted to see the numbers come in at. It's a good contractor. Again, staff and others will continue for future projects to reach out. It's simply that folks are busy, and it wasn't a big enough project, and it was a complex enough project that it just wasn't appealing enough to enough of a wide array of contractors. So, having said that, the first resolution in our package, I'd like to move a resolution to approve the selection of Fonson Company Incorporated as contractor for the William Street Improvement Project.
Second.
Thank you. So you'll see in your package, I guess page 3, is our resolution. And as you skim through it, I think a couple of key points based on our recent projects. We've kind of reformatted some of how the resolution's done, including identifying a contingency amount you'll see in the second resolved, which is a 10% contingency, where you may remember we didn't really want it to be part of the contract per se, and so we split it out as a separate contingency, but have it actually in formal resolution format that I think is consistent with the city's way of doing business. So other than that, I think this resolution is relatively straightforward. Obviously, if particular questions, we have plenty of folks here to answer.
Any discussion? Darren?
So I think everybody's excited about getting this done. I just wanted to raise a concern that I've raised before, is we continue to see single bid responses, and it's troubling, and even if it's within budget, I think it's just not a good precedent to continue to approve these, because, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and Darren, tell you what, let me sort of address that too. I don't think you were at our subcommittee meeting. Nick Hutchinson was good enough to come from the city because, you know, sort of expressly because of this concern. You know, I for one wanted to kind of hear directly from the city folks, you know, how they feel about it. And again, as you see in the write-up, you know, he's finding the city's having the same challenge, you know, with their projects. So unfortunately, I think it is the environment we're in. You know, I totally agree with you though.
As I was about to say, I think we need to take a look at our process. What we've been doing is we've been doing the city's process, and we've been getting the same results as the city, which shouldn't surprise anyone. So we're putting drawings on the street, asking for lump sum bids, and we're getting one. There are other ways, as John's aware, to buy construction services. There's construction management deals and other, where if there's only one prime contractor that really has a desire to work with us, then maybe we should talk to them about soliciting bids through other avenues. Maybe we get construction management agreement with that contractor, so we can get more visibility in some of the subcontractors that are providing bids to them to get to us. Because we continue to approve these, we want to do these projects, the bonds are let, we kind of have a timeline we need to stick with. But at the same time, I think it's really bad for us to continue to approve bids time after time, even though we say we don't like it, nobody likes it.
Yeah.
We continue to do it.
I'll tell you what, maybe we could ask Amber, you know, to touch base with Nick Hutchinson and folks at the city, because I think we need to understand maybe two things. One are the experiences the city's had, and have they looked at those sorts of alternatives, and the second would be what's permissible, you know, within, you know, the context we work in.
Let me say too that to some extent, some of this, the market kind of polices itself. So let me give you our experience when we built Library Lane. that there were a lot of bidders, and the bidders who didn't get selected came and complained, and there was sort of a little war going on. We haven't seen that lately with any of these projects. I think if there was a problem on our end, say, with the process that in some way was unfair, for example, we would see other contractors coming and complaining, this was unfair, you shouldn't have given it to this. We haven't seen that. That makes me feel a little better that it's not our unfair process, but I agree with you that we should explore whatever we can to try to bring in as many as possible. But I just wanted to say I feel a little better that it's not something that we're doing that is in some way, you know, not in the best public interest.
Well, it's something that's not an attractive project to the bidders, which is the difference. The Chrisman issue is where Chrisman awarded a large project to part of the project to themselves. That's what caused the concern, which is a totally different animal. But believe me, I've purchased a lot of construction. Maybe only Howard has purchased more than me at this table. So I just think that we can't continue to do this. I think it's not good optics for us. And maybe we don't have many options, but I think it's worth exploring.
So, Amber, you know, as I say, I mean, if you could reach out and find out, what the history is with the city, with looking at other ways of delivering services, and B, you know, what our constraints are. I don't know what our sort of legal or, you know, statutory flexibility is. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think part of the answer may be grouping projects together under larger contracts to get better interest. We do have an area that's probably underserved by the contracting community, and we have expanding work, particularly as MDOT will become more aggressive in their program to fix the roads. We're also experiencing some significant increases in paving costs this year, and we still only have one striping contractor who works in the area. So I think your suggestion that we start to group things together, get the projects to be more worthwhile, we may be able to attract larger companies who would be willing to take on the challenges of working in an urban area if there's a larger profit involved. You know, I would not dismiss the talent that it takes to work in cities, and not a lot of contractors have that as well. But I agree, it's a concern that we need to address. Alternative contracting mechanisms would be one way to pursue it, I think, along with aggregating contracts or projects into a larger contract.
Maybe the good news is our next project up in line will be of larger value, so that might help, and it might be worth looking to see what other city projects are happening concurrently. I don't know if there have been conversations about that yet, or looking to project on that for the next one.
All right, so back to the resolution. Is there any further discussion? So let's go to a vote on the resolution to approve the selection of Fonson Company, Inc. as a contractor for the William Street Improvement Project. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstain? Motion is approved. Resolution is approved.
Great, thanks. Just so folks are up to speed on the process too moving forward, the City Council will be asked to approve the cost share agreement on April 15th. So that's sort of the next piece of the puzzle. Next, a resolution to approve a construction cost sharing agreement with DTE for the Huron Street project. I'd like to move that resolution.
Second.
So, on this one, thank you, folks. We'll nail Amber if we have to. Questions answered. So, so in this one, you may remember that DTE wants to replace gas main from 4th Avenue up to there. So as part of that project, obviously, we'd like to do some cost sharing with them and not tear up the street anymore as needed. So you'll find on, what is our page number here? Page 8, thank you. a copy of the resolution, and following it is the memorandum of understanding that's been developed, that's been looked at by Jerry Lax, our attorney. I think there's still going to be some details probably worked out in this, but I think this is sort of the gist of the agreement. I assume that this is a format that's used by the city typically. Amber, could you maybe kind of give us a quick little?
This was actually developed by DTE.
Oh, was
and they
it?
sent it to us, and the markups are from our attorney.
Oh, I see.
So our
Okay.
attorney then edited the MOU, and that's what we've included in your packet.
Okay. So do we have any,
Have they approved these changes?
DTE did send just some minor changes back, and overall they're comfortable.
so do we have any issues entering into something like this in regards to either the city or the state?
No, I think this is in keeping with what we've done with the city. It's just DTE's preference to do the initial draft.
Okay, all right.
So is this the final form, Amber? When we're looking at that's the final format?
There were some minor changes that they just recently sent to us.
Okay, that we don't have here.
Yes, but they don't substantially change the agreement.
Could we make, this isn't related directly
Sure.
to this, but could we make sure that when we do this work, this goes down to Thayer?
Their work goes to Thayer, our work stops at Division.
Yeah, I think.
Do you want to do some coordination with the Hawks?
Yeah, I was trying to figure
Okay.
out if they're gonna tear up sidewalks. I think.
They will
it's
be.
between Thayer and Ingalls, I don't know if it affects me or not,
Okay.
but nothing depresses me more than curb or cuts into brand new asphalt.
Yeah.
And I lose sleep, I can't eat, I just.
I hear you, it's crazy.
I'll touch base with Nick and then make sure whoever's assigned to that other work is aware of DTE's work.
Thank you. And if we need to go back to MDOT and push them a little bit, we can do that.
Okay, great.
Sam, one question. Fortunately, I just walked out the door, but maybe you know the answer. The actual cost piece that's in this section 3, the numbers that were developed, have our consultants reviewed those and feel they're...
Can you,
Section 3, it's page 10, bottom of page 10, there's a, the actual cost piece of this.
yes, this came directly from our bid materials.
Okay.
So we gave them this language and they inserted it. into
Okay,
the agreement.
perfect. Great. Good. Makes me a little nervous when it came back from DTE. Okay, where do these numbers come from?
So one question I have is, should we have the final one to approve before we say yes?
We could, I don't think it's been moved yet, but can you move this in substantial form? You can say, you know, we know that there might be some a little bit of tweaks to it, so we could just move this in its, you know, in a form substantially like this, and knowing that there might be a few words changed.
One of the whereases says the agreement has been reviewed and approved as to form by the DDA, which I think leaves a little bit of
Yeah.
So my question is there time sensitivity to this? And if we waited for the final form and got it next month, does that change anything in reality?
There is time sensitivity because we plan on starting our work next week. I received their changes just this week, which was after your board packet went out. If you'd like, I can go print that for you. But they're really not very different from what you have in front of you.
Amber, a question for you is, in my cheat sheet, you mentioned that the potential changes would be primarily based on attorney input, so
Yes, so
is that
your
to say?
cheat sheet was written before we received the updates from DTE.
So
So we
was
had
it-
to prep everything, assuming that there would be some final changes.
But I guess maybe my main question is, would there be, do you anticipate are either the changes that were sent to you or any further changes of any sort of substance that affect time and
No.
money and?
They're not substantial, but our attorney has not yet signed off on them.
So I'm fine in,
Can we move this subject to attorney final review?
Yeah.
yes, I would be more comfortable with that. But I don't know how to do that, so someone has to tell me.
So it would just be an amendment to the resolved.
I don't think it's been moved at all yet.
It does not.
Didn't you move it?
Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
you
you-
moved it.
Yeah,
I thought Darren seconded it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
It's been moved in second, so I guess we could just, I'll move an amendment to add to resolved after the final DTE, comma, subject to DDA attorney approval.
So we have to
A.
move for the amendment. I need a motion for the amendment.
That's what I just moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
So then I have a question with that being seconded. What's the action that closes the loop on that? Do we get something back from the attorney that confirms there are no material changes? Or do you just let it hang out there?
Joan, you're our
Somebody's
attorney.
somebody's got to.
Yeah, no,
Help us out
somebody,
here.
I mean, I think what it is that we've approved them to sign this unless the attorney has substantial changes, and then it would have to come back to the board.
Yeah.
So what's the exact language then on this amendment?
Comma, subject to final review by DDA attorney.
Okay. So, all those in favor of the amendment, do you want to read it?
So the final resolved, we will put between the final DTE and the period, comma, subject to final review by DDA attorney.
So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. So that motion carries, and now we'll go back to any more discussion on the resolution as the original resolution with the amendment. Okay, so all those in favor of approving the resolution to approve the construction of the cost-sharing agreement with DTE for the Huron project, along with the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The resolution passes.
Great. Moving on to the next one. Page 14, I'd like to move resolution to approve the purchase of streetlight poles and luminaires for the Huron Street project.
Second.
Thanks. So,
These are luminaires, not luminaries.
right?
That's you, Phil.
Yeah, it seems that this is not unlike the trees, remember? So it's all the vertical elements we're kind of buying separately, I guess. So, obviously, we're wanting to get orders in a timely fashion. This is sort of a long lead type item. And so as you can see, bids were solicited for this work, and this was identified as low bidder, Caniff Electric Supply, and it's within the budget projected for the scope of work. The idea is to basically pre-purchase these.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution to approve the purchase of street light poles and whatever, luminaries for the Huron project, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Resolution passes.
That was my fault, I'm sorry, it's luminaires.
Just got the Lumineers.
I was
It's a rock
fine until
band,
you
yeah.
brought it up.
Yeah.
And then I was confused.
So that was the-
Must be some sort of,
Right.
something else in you, right?
All right, folks, ready to move on to the next one?
Hold on, sorry.
All right, page 15. I'd like to move resolution to approve an agreement with Materials Testing Consultants, Inc. for material testing services.
Second?
So this is for testing of materials for both Huron Street and the William Street projects. Again, these are folks who are on the list of the city's approved 5 firms. They're necessary services for these projects moving forward.
Didn't we approve a contract with Stantec for the same scope last meeting?
Actually, that's a good
The
question.
contract with
Yeah.
Stantec was for inspection services.
Was it inspection?
This is,
So you're seeing a series
Okay.
Okay.
of resolutions for the services that support our project.
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
So what materials get tested? Is this environmental kind of stuff, or this is more like asphalt?
Concrete.
the little cylinders you see on the side of the road?
Asphalt
Okay.
and concrete and
Okay.
all those
All the
things.
really cool stuff.
Make sure the materials coming to the site is meeting the spec.
All right.
It's a really good job. You get to crush stuff. You see it, how much pressure it takes to crush it.
We've recently
John, I
had
crush
some
my competition
contracts
every day.
Oh.
where materials didn't meet spec. So it's an important
Really
aspect.
expensive. It's really expensive to fix it.
Somebody had to repave a large section of the B2B trail
Yeah, I
because
remember
the asphalt didn't meet specs.
Okay, any further discussion? So the resolution to approve agreement with the materials testing consultant, Inc. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Resolution passes. One
Thanks.
more to go there.
On a roll. On page 16, I'd like to move resolution approving agreement with Wade Trim for general engineering services.
Second.
Thank you. So, as you can see, these are the folks who sort of, provide sort of oversight for the project where they do traffic control orders and all this sort of inane. I didn't say inane, but all the nitty gritty to keep everyone happy. Moving forward in the project. One thing I want to point out is that in the packet that was sent out, there was a minor typo in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas second line where it says general engineering services, and what was sent out originally there was a typo of testing services. So in case anyone was looking at it in detail, that's been fixed in this final version. Questions?
And this is, I'm sorry, I just have a question. This is not with respect to a particular project, right?
Well, it's for the Hurons.
Oh, it is for the Huron,
Yeah.
okay. It just wasn't clear from this that it was just.
Yeah, it's a good point. We probably should have
Yeah,
actually
I
had
just wanted to,
clarity for that.
clarify that. So this is actually not for any one project,
It's a joke.
but it is for other general engineering work that we do. So for any curbside change that we make to a meter or a loading zone, we write the traffic control order for the city to allow that process to move more smoothly. So Wade Trim has been doing that for us. This would allow us to do the after studies for some of the projects. So like the after study for Fifth and Detroit, which wasn't in the original scope, but we have room in the budget. And then once in a while, our repairs require some level of design. So if we wanted to do improvements on Main Street, MDOT asks for a higher level of design than we would typically do. So this just allows us to do those other projects, and then we take the money from the budgets for those projects.
Amber, is this budgeted such that you would project that it would cover First and Ashley also moving forward?
So the city will put this out to bid again, I believe in October or November. And so we'll follow the city's schedule. And so it may end up being a different firm and we would sign a new contract. So this would get us through until the end of the city schedule.
Okay. So this budgeted amount though is then based on what you can foresee now for our
Yes.
projects within our current scope? Okay, thank you.
So this is a not to exceed amount.
Yes.
Right.
And one of the benefits is it helps city staff approve the TCOs a lot faster than has been done in the past. So it's a little bit of burden sharing, but it also provides DDA with a way to be more responsive to the downtown businesses and residents.
Yeah, I mean, as Howard's indicating, this is a cost that had previously been borne in effect by the city. But sort of outsourcing it.
Any further discussion? So I'd like to vote on the resolution to approve the agreement with Wade Trim General Engineering Services. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Resolution passes.
Could we take a quick second? Amber, could you give us a quick update on moving forward with Huron, what you anticipate the first steps?
Yeah, maybe I can
Or
have
Liz?
Liz do that.
Oh, that'd be great. You know, and I'm mainly interested in describing to people what the public might expect to start seeing happen.
Well, weather permitting, starting next week, you would see, the motoring public can expect to see eastbound lane closure, so lane eastbound, one lane closed, and that would go all the way, and actually I should backtrack, because our construction is starting at 3rd. DTE's gas main project is gonna start at 4th Ave, and they're planning to start not next week, but the week after. But in terms of what the public will see, I assume they'll think this is all one project. So what they're gonna see is one lane closure from 3rd all the way to Glen, because there's also a U of M project coming up at the Power Center, and MDOT wants seamless traffic control. So that's eastbound, and then westbound, when DTE gets on site, which is hopefully the week after next, they're gonna take 2 lanes of traffic, so there'll be, westbound, there'll be a 1-lane closure from, I think, Fletcher to Maine will be the extent. So that's what the motoring public will see. In terms of pedestrian traffic, that'll be more block by block as construction progresses. So our construction starts at 3rd, moves easterly. DTE starts at 4th Ave and moves easterly. And it'll be block by block disruptions for a couple of blocks at a time.
On and off through the summer, or just in a couple weeks?
So it'll be, you'll see, you know, DT expects to be in each block about 4 weeks, and then they move. We'll probably have, you know, we'll have like 3 or 4 blocks that'll be under construction, where we'll start with removals, and those will progress, and then we'll follow up, you know, putting the sidewalk back. So that'll be probably like the same length of, you know, a month at a time, moving this way.
So, for example, that oft-mentioned pedestrian crossing at Thayer, so there'll be 1 lane of that will be closed down, right?
Yeah, well, Thayer will be within DTE's 2-lane closure, so they'll have traffic in 2 lanes heading in each direction on the north side of the street.
So are they gonna just close down that crosswalk? Because I can't see how.
I don't know. That's, I mean, I would imagine their construction won't get there till later in the summer.
Yeah.
But the traffic control is up. for
So if it's not till the
duration.
summer, it's probably kind of moot because there won't be that many.
Yeah, that'll be the end, and I think that, you know, you're talking July or something.
Yeah.
So is the lane closure going to start next week?
That's what we're planning. Our lane closure, which would be 1 lane, I'm not sure, DTE hasn't received approval yet for their 2 lanes, but if they do, then it would be the week following that, then they would increase the taper after Main Street to 2 lanes.
So it would probably be a good idea to close that crosswalk anyway, just because of the change in traffic configuration. And another question is, what's been the communication directly to the public and to the city on the lane closures? I should know that.
Well, it should go out today from Robert, where it's going to be a joint communication. This is what's, you know, the typical press release.
Are we gonna have the,
Sorry.
I was also going to
Lighting
add,
signs.
just yesterday, we hosted a meeting. We had sent out postcards to all property owners on Huron Street, and yesterday morning, we hosted a meeting to talk about construction impacts.
Do you have any city council members there?
We did not.
Could you send me a notice so I can share it?
Yeah, and then one other thing that we've talked about doing is, because we have 3 street projects happening at once, is that I was going to start sending out bi-weekly construction updates, because we may be getting more questions. And so that's another way that we plan to keep you informed as so much activity.
Bi-weekly,
happening.
meaning every 2 weeks or twice a week?
Every 2 weeks.
So at the height of this,
bi-monthly.
we're gonna have a lane closing. We're gonna have 2 lanes on one side of the road.
For Huron,
Yeah.
as DTE does their work, there will be times when they have 2 lanes closed.
And that's from where to where?
That's,
Correct. That's from Maine to Fletcher, which is over by the power center.
Okay. We are going to have some diligent enforcement, particularly the concern about deliveries blocking one lane westbound on Huron. We're just gonna have to make sure those building owners know that there'll be an aggressive ticketing and towing campaign if their folks stop on the street. No exceptions, no pardons, it'll be hard because we can't, if you got 2 lanes on the same side of the street, we can't block them.
Right.
So
Student.
we're gonna have to establish that discipline early.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, Maura. So has information been provided to the property owners along the, so that,
Along Huron?
yeah,
Yeah,
and
we-
the specifics of what's expected of them?
Sure. So we, in addition to the postcard we sent out for our public meeting yesterday, we've had individual meetings with many of the property owners along both sides of Huron, and we continue to communicate with them.
So can we communicate with the Postal Service, FedEx, and all those folks too?
We have not done that.
We should, because they're the one, it's not the beer trucks, it's the deliveries that are causing the
UPS,
problems.
FedEx, yeah.
So we need to make sure they understand as well that
Right.
they're gonna get hit if they block traffic.
Student, even at North Quad.
It might even be worth more for like State Street and for Carytown, just like the businesses that, aren't on Huron, but, like are on all the cross streets.
Right, so we attended the Main Street Area Association meeting and presented this project. I keep the association directors in the loop on those communications. We have it in our newsletter, and we'll be continuing to get it out to as many people as we can. We actually have a list of people who are interested in the Huron Street project that we've accumulated from many different meetings, so it's not just people on Huron, it's throughout the community.
This is the area where I think from Southview, which of course Southview is not comparable in terms of like an inconvenience in traffic to this project, that it was the people that are not engaged and not on these lists and not members of these associations or are passive members that are the ones that get inconvenienced and then will get upset, and maybe rightly so. Like when we talk about like the communications, like maybe this is the time, maybe the time where we take out an observer ad, or we do that and be like, there's massive construction coming.
Well, and we have
you will be inconvenienced. Reach out here. Here's where
Press release time live.
Press release time live. Like this is like, which is your forte, Maura. So
Well, and we've got there'll be a big construction sign coming down on Huron, around the YMCA, letting people know when you're coming eastbound.
Kick Bank of Ann Arbor off that
I know,
billboard.
yeah.
Let's get in there. Yeah.
So yeah, those are great ideas.
Yeah.
We'll continue to do that.
Exciting, eh?
Contact your local DDA board member.
Jessica Lee taught us So one other thing, just a quick tap you about is back to the William Street project.
Oh, sure.
You want to give people just a real quick thing of.
Okay, so at our, at the last CIC meeting, we had a complete presentation on outreach and education, which I'm happy to share with anyone if you're interested, but just the condensed version. Basically, we're looking at our outreach and communication for this project in 2 phases. So the first part of outreach is really about awareness. So for awareness, we actually started the campaign in January through social media. We ended up getting quite a few different pieces in traditional media. Beginning next week, we'll have 50 banners lining Main Street from Mosley up to William, and this is basically just announcing that this project is coming. We want people to be aware. So that's next week, and then next month, starting in May, we have transit ads going up inside buses, in addition to on-location signage. We're also partnering with as many different partners as we can in Arbor Public Schools, in Arbor Police. We have a whole list of people that we're working with. So we'll continue on with the awareness, and then we will transition into education as we get closer to implementation. We're working closely with the City of Ann Arbor, of course, to talk about the technical components of that education campaign. So we have a pretty robust plan ahead of us, and I'm happy to share that and give any more detail if you.
Yeah, to me, the key thing is that since it's going to be the first protected bike lane downtown, is to do everything we can to begin with good behavior. You know what I mean? To even encourage families and kids and folks to use it and people to use it in a safe and appropriate way. So I think that's an awful lot of the focus of it, is to get it off to a good start.
Right.
I have to say, Maura, I really appreciate your newsletter. It's very helpful as a member of the DDA when people ask me questions. I send them that, I forward it to them and say you should get on this list because this will keep you up to date. So it makes our job much easier, and I really like it. You do a good job.
Thank you. And if anybody out there is interested in the DDA newsletter, just go to our website, apdda.org, and there's a purple button right on the homepage to sign up.
Are we all not already self-subscribed on that? I don't recall seeing it.
No.
I'm feeling not, so that's
It's
bad.
a great-
My bad.
I can add you
Purple
to, I
button.
can add you all to the list.
Yeah, I think you should.
I'm already on the list, Maura, thank you.
Because I forwarded to people.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of schools, which you mentioned William Street, that's actually not a bad idea for Huron Street. Like you have people that drive up and down Huron Street to go to Slauson,
Sure.
up to Forsyth. I mean, like that's
That's a good
probably
idea.
pretty heavily trafficked. Community, yeah. So like, if you're reaching out people that are like going to be inconvenienced by this, and also inconvenienced by their kids alongside that. So like, this is like a good way to like get out, and that's probably a.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because we've connected with Slauson for other reasons, but I've already talked to them about engaging for William Street.
Yeah.
So certainly we can reach out to them.
Or even like Bach, because
Yeah,
you have
no,
to
all
get
of
to
them over
Bach
there.
somewhere,
Right.
some way.
We need to follow up on loading and unloading zones on Huron during the construction. And then maybe that leads towards a more permanent solution so that people get in the habit of loading and loading off the side roads. So one thing to do.
Well, and that's something we can also bring to the businesses on Huron to try to get them to help to communicate that to their delivery people.
And while I have your attention, the other thing that we need to address on William Street is the end of the street, the end of the lane, state where the lane ends, and work with the university to address their concern that we're going to dump a bunch of bicycles onto the diagonal.
Right.
And figure out how to get people either onto Northview or head southbound state.
Yeah, and our hope is that, the university will be a partner as far as education because we recognize that a lot of students will be using that bike lane, so we are reaching out.
I'm going to meet with Dr. Schlissel next week. If you could send me a list of things you'd like me to tell him about this work, that would be great.
Thank you.
Another question. Sorry, Pro 20. So, what's the plan for Sundays on Huron Street while there's construction?
Oh, for the church parking?
Yeah, because I feel like that's a question I'm going to get asked in terms of.
Ask.
That's a good question. Anyone know?
You can ask Liz.
I already almost run into cars every time I drive down Huron on Sundays.
I would think
Division
enforcement might be the answer, but.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the church parking is it's all east of Division, right?
Yes.
Try to,
And then on Washington, but that's obviously not sure.
yeah, I'm not sure because the barrels will be up. So initially there won't be any work in that area, but there'll be barrels there. So technically, I don't think you should be parking.
So we should probably reach out to the churches
Yeah,
as
that'd
well,
be good.
because their parking will be gone, or
Yeah.
will be there and they'll be trying to slide into the parking.
It seems to me it was kind of a bad precedent to say you can park now when
Yeah,
you
once the
tell them
barrels go,
now
it's
you
not.
can't.
Right.
That is everywhere.
We're bopping back and forth between the two. I guess my one other question about MDOT and Huron is, I know had still been waiting last we talked about the Hawk. I say this because once again I saw a near miss with a pedestrian because it's such a horrible situation.
Yeah.
Have we heard back anything from MDOT about that one yet?
Is that Third Street?
No, that's one that we're still waiting to hear back on. And city staff are helping us push back on that. They've asked, they've helped us make the case and they've asked for a response.
That would be an awesome, the video that you had, Amber, that you showed that one time, was like, every time I go there, not that I was of course not infringer, but I like look for those things. I'm like, oh, I saw that on a video. We should make a YouTube ad with that, and that should be communication. Sorry, I just came up with this idea.
Go for it.
We'll talk after.
Go for it.
We'll talk after the fact. Someone allocate me some budget.
Okay.
But like, I think it's like if everyone could see that video, that would like have a like legit impact. I think.
So, if Rishi's done, nobody else has any other questions?
I got so many good ideas for it right now.
Okay, it's time to be quiet.
Double
It's
shot
time to go to
espresso
that,
today.
that quiet place.
This caffeine is just now kicking in.
That's hard.
So, our next CIC meeting is Wednesday, April 17th at 11 a.m. Thanks. Sorry for taking up an hour.
The entire meeting.
All right, and now we will speedily move on to the Operations Committee, and that is Keith and Phil. Who's going first?
I start off here because we have a resolution, yet another resolution on page 17 to approve Get Downtown annual funding. I will move that.
Second?
And let's see, page 17 here. And you'll notice that the funding request is remarkably similar to last year's, a 0.58% increase. So they've obviously worked hard to try and keep it within budget. And we had a presentation from Chris Simmons, the director of the Get Downtown program. Is Chris here today? No, he's not. So we can't ask him questions. But if you are interested in that presentation, it is on our website, yes. It's been cut off here, so I don't see exactly how you get to it.
You can link to it.
You can link to it from the website. Anyway, the Get Downtown is, or the Go Pass, and Go Pass has done a tremendous amount for downtown. Basically, it has prevented us from having to build one more parking structure. So that in itself makes it cost effective, let alone the environmental and sustainability issues. So I'm always thrilled to support them. Any other discussion?
Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the resolution to approve Get Downtown annual funding request, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Resolution passes.
Another unanimous one. I'm going to jump a couple just so that I can finish mine and then pass it over to Phil. So that's down to the parking and transportation report, which again, in that effort to save paper, is not in the packet here, but is available on the website. More information has been included, including data about the electric vehicle charging stations and solar carport data. So if you have any questions, Jada will be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I will toss it back to Phil.
All right, thanks, Keith. I think we should call this Resolution Day, because I have two more for approval today. I'd like to move a resolution to amend the contract amount with Carl Walker / WGI for the design engineering of the Ann Ashley Garage expansion project. As you know, thank you. As you know, this process, the site planning process has taken much longer than we originally anticipated. Carl Walker / WGI has incurred a number of expenses with respect to responding to, I guess it's the design review board, the planning folks around the Ann Ashley garage expansion project. Those additional planning and design fees total $188,346. And that amount will enable them to oversee the remainder of the process until construction. Is there any discussion, comments, questions around this particular resolution? I don't hear any.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution to amend the contract with WGI on the Ann Ashley expansion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Resolution passes.
Second resolution that I'm going to move is a resolution to approve a project budget for the renovation of the DDA parking operator customer service and administrative office and the selection of Krull Construction as contractor.
Phil, before we second that or move that, I'd like to move that we postpone this discussion until next month.
So I think there needs to be some discussion or something.
I think we have to
We're moving
I
that?
think we have to second it,
Have to
to
second.
talk about.
Actually, I think we have to
I made sure I did it
second
before.
yours.
I made sure I did it before we seconded it, so we didn't get into a Robert's Rules problem. Because I don't want to
I
be
know,
forced to
but
vote
it's
on
been
it.
moved, I think it has to be seconded.
No, it doesn't have to be seconded.
Well, right, if no one seconds, I'd like to second it.
Okay.
Now you
Now
can.
you
So now there's
fine.
there's a discussion where I think
Okay.
you can move
Now you
your.
can-
I'd like to move to table this to next month.
Point of order, you need to postpone it. Tabling it moves it to the end of the meeting. I've been waiting to drop that knowledge for a few weeks.
I'd like to move to postpone this to next month.
And I'll second it just so we can discuss it.
So,
I get, you weren't at the operations meeting.
no, so last week was
I
Ann
guess
Arbor
I'd
Public
like to
Schools
understand
spring
why.
break. Well, so I've
Why-
had concerns about
why?
this project going back many months. Those concerns haven't really changed. I was not at last week's operations meeting, I apologize, but it was Ann Arbor Public Schools spring break, and as a father of three small children, I was out of town. So, I had a discussion with Jada, about lengthy discussion, a good discussion about this and the concerns I have with it. And I don't think it's financially prudent to do this. I understand there's a real issue we have to solve, but if we want to get into a lengthy discussion, I'm happy to do that now. I think it's probably best had in operations, and happy to provide all that next month in operations. I don't think there's urgency to approve this now, and it could be approved in next month's board meeting after that discussion takes place. Other people have questions, I can go into detail.
I think that it's maybe a warranted conversation, but there also what is warranted is Jada's presentation that she gave at the operations committee meeting, which spelled out 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different options that were presented to us, which I think she's prepared to give us a synopsis of, or the whole thing this afternoon. Do we want that, or are we actually just going to table this discussion until the next operations committee? I was under the impression that we were going to hear from Jada, see the numbers that she prepared.
I'm happy either way.
I think we should
It
see
doesn't
it.
matter to me if you want to
If the
present it,
chair
present it.
feels we have time, you know, without knowing what else all is out on the agenda.
I believe this is the final resolution.
This is the thing behind us right here.
Yeah, I think it's already up on the screen.
Sure, so I can
Let's do
prove
it.
it.
It's worth having.
So in 2018, we started a discussion with the operations committee about some issues that our operator was facing at the Maynard office. So what we shared is that over the years, the parking system has grown, we've added spaces, it's become more complex, we have more payment options, more options as far as monthly permits. We've kind of taken on some different tasks. So we're asking more of our operator, but throughout this, we've maintained our commitment to a high level of customer service. For those of you who may not know, we're talking about the office that houses the admin and customer service team. This is off of Maynard, kind of back in by the drive lanes. So currently, it's very crowded there. We have a need to add some more space for the admin and customer service team. And we would like to be able to have a better experience for customers who come in there. Right now, there's a pretty small footprint where customers stand. And those customers would be people picking up monthly permits, people picking up meter cards, doing meter business, also applicants. Republic gets a lot of applicants, and this is where they go to fill out that application. There's only one restroom right now. It's shared by the team there, other RPS staff, and also by the police. There's a mini police station kind of across the drive lane, so they're using that as well when they're out on patrol. And you have to go outside of the offices to get to that restroom.
Jada, can I just ask,
Yep.
architecturally, is this, are we out of code because of the occupancy? Do we know that?
I don't know, because I'm guessing that would probably count the permanent seats there in that office. You know, it's harder to know exactly how many police officers would be using this as a shift.
Whatever's there now is grandfathered in, so it's not as though it's, as it now stands, is breaking any rules per se.
Again, to the space consideration, we were hoping to have a locking office for the HR director. And there's also really only one means of egress. So these are kind of the things that we discussed with the operations committee. This office was kind of developed as part of a larger project in 1999 when the work was done there for structure. The ops committee asked us to think about what the ideal office would look like. We said it should be downtown, have parking spaces. You know, we talked about it needing to be accessible, visible, need 3 interior offices, 2 bathrooms, and a customer service area. So like I said, we talked about this a couple times throughout 2018, and in December, the committee asked us to really go deeper and explore 2 options: renovating or leasing somewhere downtown. So that's the information that we have for you today. The third option that had been talked about a little bit along the way was to construct or do a build out as part of the Ann Ashley project. I think the committee and the board throughout all that discussion thought that that would be expensive. On the plus side, it would allow us to build something and then just move over there. It wouldn't impact operations. But again, I think we feel now that maybe that's been set aside. Most of the other, actually all of the other offices in the structures were built during some kind of major repairs or renovations in the structures as part of a larger bonded project. So for option 1, the Maynard renovation, we worked with an architect to get some ideas for what we could do in that existing space. The proposed design, we add 265 square feet. It touches and kind of reconfigures all of the space. So we're getting an expanded customer service area, creates 1 more office, and adds an additional toilet that you can get to from the inside, and an additional door. So that kind of meets all of our goals that we laid out. This just shows you we're eating into the elevator lobby area a little bit to gain some space in that front customer team. Currently, at the end, where it currently ends, where that red wall is towards the back, is where the bike house begins. We would be removing that bike house and expanding into that area. This is just kind of another sketch. Here I tried to kind of break down the different components of the office space and show you where we're adding, where we would end up.
Go back a slide.
Yep.
Just as a point of information, you have 4 offices that take up less square feet compared to your offices.
Yes.
It begs the question, why can't you just reconfigure the offices?
We could, if we were just tackling the offices, we could certainly, you know, do some kind of reconfiguration there. It's adding that restroom. Where it makes sense to add the restroom is next to the existing restroom and mechanical. So that's why we kind of put the bathroom there, so it's adjacent to the services that are there, and kind of push the other offices to the west.
So are the offices, that there are 4 offices right now? Is that right? Is that what that's saying?
Yeah, there are two with doors, and then there's additional space without a door. So we'd be adding.
Oh, there's 3
Yeah,
offices
yeah.
right now. Got it. And then and those are all locking. It's just that there's.
Two have doors, one does not have.
Oh, and that's where the HR director is.
She kind of floats around.
She floats around. Okay.
But that's part of this, is to give the HR director an office where she can interview people or listen to employees.
Yeah, I've
confidentially.
I've not been in the office, so I'm just getting a mental picture.
So our architect helped us through a bid process. We received 5 bids. As part of the bidding, we asked for an alternate that includes some phasing. So the base bid amount was if we gave them an empty space, if we moved out all the employees and relocated that customer service function. The phasing allows us to keep kind of half of it open. So the front customer service area would stay in its place. They'd start on the back end, and then at some point, the customer service space would relocate temporarily to the back, and that would allow us to keep that open there.
What happens to the bike hut?
The bike house, we are going to try and save the glass panels. I think as we've learned more about bike houses, maybe we situated that one back too far in the structure. It's not nearly as popular and well used as the Ann Ashley bike house. So we would keep the components and try and use them elsewhere. So this again, what I was saying about the phasing. Allow people to continue to go to Maynard for what they're used to. The second option we explored, we worked with a broker to get information on what was available to rent downtown. We shared kind of that ideal office wish list. They provided about 20 options. Some of them we took off the list because they were not accessible. They were either in a basement or in a second floor that didn't have an elevator. Some were just too costly for our budget. We visited 3 spaces. I'll kind of quickly walk you through the 3 spaces. This is on East Washington above the Blue Tractor. It was close to the square footage that we were looking for. It is second floor, does have a elevator. You access that elevator through the Blue Tractor lobby. Has 1 bathroom. We would obviously need some interior offices constructed. I think with this space we were concerned about the lack of visibility, having to send people through that kind of lobby area of the Blue Tractor. Second space, 111 South Main. Again, another second floor, has an elevator. This had 2 bathrooms and was bigger than what we were looking for. We would need to do some build out here to get the offices. When we first shared this information, one of the more desirable spaces based on cost was this 414 South Main. This is in the Ashley Hughes building. It is a ground floor. What we learned when we got there, there's not an existing bathroom, and it does need quite a bit of work. This is the state it's in now. It looks like there was at some point a food service business in there, and then it looks like maybe another tenant got started with some renovations and didn't finish. So there's some work that needs to be done there. Our broker requested a term sheet in mid-January, so we could learn a little bit more about what they would offer us, and we have not yet received that from them. So
we don't pay rent in Maynard, right?
Yeah, that last point is indicative of how it would go with that particular landlord. I'm here to tell you.
So when we look at their square footage and the base rent, for the leases that were triple net, we kind of made some assumptions with the help of our broker on what that annual rent would look like. We estimated that cost out over 14 years, which takes us to the end of the parking contract in the DDA, the current end of the parking contract in DDA. So when you look at it this way, that 414 South Main Street is the most affordable
But that,
option.
and then you'd have construction on top, 60,000.
Yes. And that the build-out estimates are just estimates. One question that came up as we talked through this with the committee is if we were to leave the Maynard office, is there value there? So the broker looked at it and described the space as subpar and suggested a $15 to $20 per square foot rental rate. Thought that possibly it could be the kind of space that would be attractive to startups. They would not likely be interested in a very long lease, so it might be that we'd be cycling through. So what we did here is kind of compare that 414 South Main Street cost with build out at Maynard. And then here we pulled together some pros and cons for each of the options. Does anybody
Thanks.
have any questions about any of this?
What do we do from a Robert's Rules perspective right now? We're supposed to discuss this if there's any discussion, correct? And then we go back to Darren's proposed,
Well, I think we have to vote on the postponement, which is that was the motion that was on the floor.
Right.
And then if that fails, we would go back to discussion of the main motion.
okay.
Can we discuss this presentation,
proposal?
just have a more
Right.
informed view of whether or not we should postpone?
Well, I guess I'd like to know what the concerns are that would lead to your desire to have a postponement.
So, a number of concerns, but the most simple to explain today, I made myself a little, taking the numbers that Jada had sent out, because I got a copy of this, she knew I had a lot of concerns about this, but just at a high level, comparing the two from a financial standpoint, if you're looking at Kroll's bid, let's look at Maynard. So Kroll's bid is $450,000 to do what they got to do. We're also losing 2 parking spaces. And this isn't critical to the argument, but it's reality. 2 parking spaces, if any other developer took those out of commission, the replacement cost, as we've established, is $75,000. So you should really add $150,000 to that $450 for replacement costs elsewhere in the system, so you get to $600,000. So my starting position is that the Maynard project costs $600,000. So Ashley Muse, which is the most cost-effective system, notwithstanding Phil's comments about the landlord might not be the best to work with, regardless, $36,000 a year. So the 14-year life of the DDA really is a strange way to look at it, in my opinion. So what I took is I took the $600,000, I subtracted the 60, which is the estimated build out for today. So I'm at 540, and I divide 540 by $36,000 a year for how many years to break even? That's 15 years. So to me, if you say it's a 15-year break even, it's a no-go, because that's just way too long with it. So that's the starting point, just on the pure financials of the issue. I don't think it's a good financial deal to spend essentially $600,000 on a bathroom.
I thought it was $75,000 to create a new space. Are
Yeah.
we saying that one space generates $75,000?
It's replacement costs. The replacement cost if you eliminate a parking space is 75, so it's 150 for 2. So I'm adding that to the cost because we have to build those spaces elsewhere in the system, right? But anyways, the bigger point is I really think this is a $600,000 bathroom, and I feel for Mike and his people, they don't have adequate bathroom facilities, and that is not okay. So I think what we need to do is solve that problem, and I think we can solve it for a lot less than $600,000 while we tackle the bigger question, and that is where do we locate Republic, and really where do we relocate this operation, because the lease for this is coming up soon. Part of the discussion here, Jada touched on it briefly, was do we do Ann Ashley build out? At the time we went through Ann Ashley, we talked about louvers, we talked about staining brick, we talked about taking 20 more spaces off the north side. All those were originally yes, and then we said no to the build out. Eventually those 3 all went away, but we never revisited the idea of the build out. If this operation needs a home, Republic needs a home, we're bonding, as Jada said, all the other offices have been built during bonds, so you can spread it over a long period of time. Without diving into it, and without talking to our current landlord, I think that's the discussion needs to happen, is maybe it does make sense to revisit that and consider relocating the DDA offices and the Republic Customer Service Center in the north portion of the Ann Ashley thing. I don't have any members on that. I don't know if that's the right thing. I think it's worth discussing. I think we need to talk about what can we do to solve Republic's real human needs of bathrooms that's sufficient for the employees in the short term. I think there are options out there that cost a lot less money that don't tie us in. The final point is that looking big picture at the parking operations, we spend a lot of time looking at the revenue side, and we take a lot of arrows as a DDA for raising parking rates. As a board, I don't think we spend enough time looking at the cost side of the parking operation. And this is another cost, and the purpose of this is to support more personnel, which is, if you look at, is the biggest cost of the parking system. And as we look forward in driverless cars and automated parking decks, I'm not sure that we're going to need as much staffing going forward. I would hope that we don't. And as was said in this presentation, this office space is subpar and it's not really worth a lot to the private market. So to make an investment into this office space, which perhaps we're not going to recoup even if we wanted to lease it out tomorrow, is also not good. So I put all those things together and they're all telling me the same thing, that I don't want to spend $600,000 on a parking to put a bathroom in a parking garage.
I just wonder though how much more cost we're going to incur if we bring up the Ann Ashley build out, bring that back to the design review board and architectural fees and Carl Walker and delays of the city.
And I'm not saying that's the ultimate solution. I'm just saying that that's one thing you think about, because as you have to have this discussion, the lease on this office probably should be part of that. And a discussion, maybe our landlord wants to renew us at no additional rate and we're happy with that and then it's off the table, but I think we need to think about it.
Keith?
I mean, I don't think it's true that we didn't revisit that at the time, because at the time, that was my belief, exactly that, because I don't like the idea of spending a fortune on subpar area. I also don't like the leasing options. So if it's just between those two, I would support fixing the subpar just so that the other elements of it are appropriate. All along, I wanted to see us do the build-up, but it was nixed at that point, not way back then. It was nixed when we started talking about this. So if it's, I would be happy to see that as a solution, but I share Phil's concern. It's like, if we suddenly now decide, oh, let's do that, does this mean we're going to have another
Big delay.
6-month delay?
Well, you wouldn't do it now. You would do it as an administrative amendment after the site plan is initially approved. That would be crazy to try to shove that into the city at this point. You can easily do things like that after. It's an administrative amendment. It's quite simple.
Howard? And then Molly?
One of the questions was, is this time sensitive?
Pardon me?
Is this time sensitive? What happens if we wait a month?
So I believe based on when the bids were turned in, I double checked, it came up at operations. I think we get through that Friday after the next board meeting, so that, I don't have the date in front of me.
So
but
the bid is good through that date.
Friday after the next board meeting?
Yes.
So you
It's
could.
like May 4th or 5th.
So we could make a decision then and still have enough time to, a couple days, but act on it.
So did this come up in the meeting, when when this resolution was brought forward, what discussions? I assume there were discussions about all this that happened.
And that's what Darren said. He wasn't at that meeting, so
Well,
he wasn't there to bring this up. But we decided to bring this resolution to today's meeting.
As far as the discussions about Ann Ashley, that was months ago. That was last
Yeah. Right.
fall, November or something, that it was decided, no, we need this.
You mean Ann Ashley build out.
Molly?
Quick question for Jay. Do we think that the build-out prices are significantly inflated because of the timing of like this year? Just like all the bids that we're getting in? Like, meaning, do you think, if we're looking at a 14-year plan, do you think that we could get this for $100,000 cheaper if we do it down the road?
I don't really know enough about construction to be able to speak to that. I mean, I think it was maybe a good sign that 4 out of the 5 bids were kind of around the same ballpark.
Yeah.
And I think they're dealing in a tricky space and that there's some grade issues, working in a parking structure, so perhaps that has contributed to the cost.
So I've got a question.
So I don't know that answered that question. That question was more like, if we delayed construction, do we want to anticipate that the cost of construction will go down in the future, so that it might be more
I mean,
economical?
obviously, if there's a recession and people are super hungry, you might save some dollars, but.
We bid this out to very
Yeah.
reputable local firms.
Yeah, and the point, they were all 4 out of 5, I think, were very, very close. So it's what, we call a good bid, in that it was an accurate bid based on the scope of work in this.
So the
part.
comparison that we're making of lease versus build out feels like it's a comparison that's going to be relevant now and in the future.
Yeah, yeah. So, I've got a question. So would it be possible, or is it too late, or is it worth considering, if we wanted to move forward with this, could we combine it into the Ann Ashley bond? Joe?
Yes.
We're gonna drag you up here, man. I'm just asking questions. I'm just curious whether it's even possible. Or
Yes, the bond has not been started for sale or any of the pre-work done. So yes, the bond amount could be increased.
Okay. Thanks.
So you-
At least I got Joe up here. I had to find something.
Little Birdie told me that's not the last time he's going to come up.
So we have to, we'll have to decide on whether to postpone it. Or to, so any further discussion, or we'll vote on the postponing?
I don't see any harm in postponing it if the bids are still held open until after the next meeting.
I concur with that. I mean, I vote for the postponement just to make sure
So-
we can get to as good a place as possible.
All those in favor of postponing it, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
I guess I'm a nay.
Okay. So, then do I have to go back, or am I done? I'm done with that. It's postponed. So we have voted to postpone the resolution to build out the Maynard parking garage.
All right, and I think then the only other thing to say regarding Operations Committee is that our next meeting is Wednesday, April 24th at 11 a.m.
All right, next up is partnerships. Joan?
Okay, our partnerships meeting from last month was with our partners, not the internal one. So we have every other month with our partners, and our next month will just be the internal DDA committee. What we had was Peter Allen returning, who has given us a presentation on his students' work looking at suggestions for redeveloping the former Y lot, and we saw his presentation on that. Our last few partners meetings have Matt Carpenter from AAA has been there, which has been very helpful because we've been able to focus on transportation. And he spoke about the bike share relaunch, which Monday night City Council voted for its matching piece. Also, AAA was awarded a pilot grant for a new wheelchair lift system, so people who ride the bus know that if there's a person with a wheelchair, that often takes a huge amount of time to get that secured. This new system will be a lot more streamlined, a lot more pleasant for everybody involved. They're getting some public input for some service changes in August, which are fairly minor, and also for the future bus rapid transit. Matt has been in both DC and Lansing to look at some more grant opportunities, so that it seems like there's some money for ATA to get even more matching money for increased services, so that's good. We had Councilmember Ramwawi here from the city talking about an ordinance that passed Monday on first reading that has been his passion to ban two-stroke gas-powered leaf blowers, and it's sort of a pilot project which will be within the DDA district.
It's actually second reading.
Was that second reading? Oh, okay.
That's rule, it's a law now.
ordinance.
Yeah, so that goes into effect, I think, in July. And Maura has been working with them on that to talk to people within the DDA about changing their habits with respect to those leaf blowers. He also talked about 415 West Washington, and 415 West Washington, I believe, is listed in the group of properties that council voted to kind of look at for affordable housing possibilities, so we'll leave that to the council. And then we got the same reports that we got today from Amber about our construction projects. So our next partnerships meeting is April 10th at 9 a.m. and this will be our internal partnerships meeting. In our internal meetings, we have been focusing a lot on affordable housing initiatives, so I would invite anybody from here who wants to work on that to come to our meeting, which is next week.
John, I have a question. At the meeting a couple months ago, I think it was, that Matt described that they were looking at buying more buses, new buses, and at that time he was talking about CNG buses. And I think, Howard, you expressed, interest in what they were looking at doing. Did that come up? Because, my understanding, CNG is thought of as a really kind of a dying technology, that electric buses are really the thing that people are protecting. And I'm just curious whether he mentioned where they are in that process of buying new buses and what they're committing to moving forward.
Yeah, he didn't talk about it that I recall.
Okay.
From the last meeting.
Just seems like something that'd be great to coordinate with the city too on, the sustainable, is he Stoltz, and kind of looking at, what technologies are the right ones moving forward and all that.
Yeah.
And coordinating efforts with the city.
Sure.
All right, thanks.
All right, next up we have Finance Committee. Joe, could you come to the podium, please?
Rishi put her up
there. Yeah, there you go.
Nice to see you. Actually, I just wanted to say that we didn't have a Finance Committee meeting,
No, we
so
didn't.
the next one will be Thursday, April 21st.
Come on.
But you all got the expense registers. Any comments?
Thank you. Thank Rishi for that.
How many? What's the time? What's the clock on, Joe? What's the ticker? What's the ticker at?
115.
Days.
We're gonna make it. We're gonna make you work for that 115
You're gonna work
days,
for that,
man.
The care and torturing of Joe.
Next up is the Executive Committee meeting. Today we gathered without Susan and we had a nice discussion. We just reviewed the agenda. Our next committee meeting is Wednesday, May 1st at 11 a.m. That brings us to, is there any new business?
Could somebody consider the Earth Day on April 21, 22 as something to support?
That'll be reflected in the notes and go to committee. That'll be reflected in the notes and we'll go to committee. Other audience participation? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
Second.